everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Episode 6. It's called Adapt or Die. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. I will say it right away, I was a little disappointed that the opening title screen wasn't anything really stylized.
It's not like the standard thing that we've had in previous seasons. It wasn't like a normal.
It was more normal, because when they had the space season, that had like a more stylized thing to space than this one was. This was just kind of slightly sci-fi looking to go with the ship background, but it wasn't really...
Yeah, like, I mean, I was like, what is this supposed to be, if anything? Because I'm like, all right, we're in the 70s still. It's just kind of generic.
It feels weird that every single episode so far has had something really specific to the theme. And I get that this episode doesn't necessarily sort of really do anything with the 70s per se, because it's mostly just set in the locations we've already established, but I don't know. They've set up an expectation, and I was let down by that. Luckily, the rest of the episode did not disappoint, though. A lot of stuff going on, big dramatic beats that play out, a couple of which I think the first thing I want to talk about is how kind of almost ingenious they somehow turned the trope of Coulson dying more than once into a really good dramatic beat, where he kind of basically tells the main villain to piss off, like, because as we sort of re-establish in this episode, one of the Chromicon's biggest thing is that they don't fear death like humans do, and that's part of why they see humans as weak and useless, because ultimately they always have to die, and they care so much about dying that they have to try and avoid it or get emotional about it,
save other people from
sacrifices, all that kind of thing. And Coulson makes this big speech because he sneaks into the secret base. Their time traveling ship goes underground, which is why they've not found it up until now. We'll get to the stuff that happens before then in a bit, but he jacks into the kind of the communication sort of virtual reality thing they've got.
It goes into the Matrix,
and he talks to the seer, the one who sees the timeline, and gives them the instructions. And she's quite happy to talk about everything. She answers every question that he gives her,
and I would suspect very honestly.
Yeah, she doesn't care. She doesn't care about lying. It's just not something that she feels the need to do. And he gives this great speech that I found oddly kind of inspirational, where he's talking about how great humans are and the people around them. And it's just, as he's saying, this is a montage of all the other characters doing whatever they're doing,
and the usual.
They're all kind of doing they're all kind of at their high points of the episode where they're doing their most emotional parts. But barring one big thing with Mac, which is really emotional. And then he gets to the end, like, but you're wrong about one thing, because she's like, oh, what's the third thing? What's the third thing that you're going to explain to him? He's like, yeah, he said, we fear death, and that's true, but I don't. You've overlooked me. I don't fear death. In fact, it's kind of my superpower. And I sort of felt like, on the one hand, it is kind of tropey how the show even started with the idea, okay, they killed him in Avengers, and they brought him back because they wanted to do a show with them. It felt a little bit eye-rolly, but it's like, okay, Clark Gregg's great. You want him around for the show. We'll just sort of go with it. And then we have this big death at the end of season 5, and it was perfect. It's this perfect send-off for the character. And it's still technically the real send-off. And then we have evil Coulson from the other world in season 6. And then we have LMD Coulson in season 7. And all of it's very tropey in a way to kind of just to keep excusing the fact that we want this actor back. We want to have this image of this person. And they turned
it's not the only actor we've done it with in the show either.
Oh, no, of course not. But they turn it into a dramatic beat where he says, no, this is who I am. This is what... Even May at one point says, Coulson kind of died in the explosion, killing the ship. But hey, you know what? You'll be back. It's fine. It's just kind of works out.
His thing.
Yeah, it's very meta in a weird way to do it like this, but there is something kind of really smart from a writing perspective of accepting, okay, we've used this trope a lot, we're going to actually turn it into kind of a character strength that somehow Coulson always comes back in some form or another. And I'm sure you will. I'm sure this is not the last Coulson visual we're going to see this season. We might go an episode or two without him. I could totally see that, but...
No way he's gone for good. He's going to be in the last episode, let's be honest.
Yeah, if nothing else, there'll be a Coulson of some kind. Now, admittedly, their way around this is that we're dealing with time travel, and we're actually going to get... I assume we're getting to the time periods now where just younger living Coulson is going to be around.
Yeah. When did he join S.H.I.E.L.D.? Do we know? I can't remember. I'm sure we do know.
Well, I don't know the exact time frame, but he was already in S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain Marvel in the 90s, so...
That's true, yeah. So we've got to be kind of getting towards that very soon. I don't want to necessarily say the next episode because we don't know for sure.
Yeah, we don't know how big the jumps are at the end of the episode because there's 2 jumps, of course. And we'll get into that, but so I just think it's really fascinating that they took that and made it a character beat. So when he actually said that, it felt oddly kind of like, yeah, Coulson always comes back. Deal with it, villain. You could plan for this. So I thought that was neat. So yeah, he basically sacrifices himself. So basically living up to what he just said is that he doesn't fear death. He completely lives up to it in the very next few minutes where he sets off all the explosives that they were originally going to flood the base with. He blows up their ship. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of shenanigans with Patrick Warburton. He's got him and May kind of locked down. Eventually, he convinces them. In fact, I actually laughed out loud because obviously he doesn't believe a word they're saying about robots from the future taking faces.
Pretty understandably.
But then he wakes up in like the face changing machine thing, the mind swapping, because that's the big revelation this episode is that they've kind of adapted and now they also take the personality and the memories of the person. So May becomes this like detector where when someone touches her, she's like, hey, that agent.
Nothing from them.
Yeah,
which is exactly what we said that will happen because it's just, oh hey, you set this up. This is the perfect use of it.
Yeah, and I think what actually is very smart about this episode is that it does it with the female agent, about halfway through, and that kind of gets the plot going in all these directions. And because it's already done it once, I think you're kind of in this lull of like not expecting it again this episode, really. I mean, they'll probably use it again, but probably not this episode. They've set it up for this episode. They've done that. They've done their part. So when it comes back later, and the parents of Mac who have been around, and we've had a lot of these weird little moments, some of which are very funny, when Mac tries to hug them, or when he just awkwardly says, "This is Yo-Yo, my girlfriend," and Yo-Yo's like, "These strangers don't care about the fact that I'm your girlfriend, Mac. Calm down." Like all of that was pretty entertaining.
Yep.
And even the bonding where he's kind of bonding with his dad. Obviously his dad doesn't know who he is, but they're bonding over like fixing the door, getting the door working so that it'll open because it's similar to a car mechanic,
Yeah.
So yeah, no, all really good stuff. So when May like just quietly turns the plane around towards the end of the episode when they're flying back to the Quinjet with Mac's parents, you're like, oh no. Because
it's when the dad touches her on the shoulder, and she just has a look for half a second, and before she even does anything else, you know.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they just already did this before they even set up we've got your parents. They already did this.
Yeah, I think just while we're on this element here with Mac's parents, this confirmed that the time travel rules we're playing with are not. Okay, this is how everything always happened, sort of thing. That self-fulfilling element that we've discussed over the.
Oh yeah, that's this particular plot does, change things. Yeah, and
I mean, even early on when Max says, it's this exact day this year, I know where we were. I have memories of the
bicentennial. Yeah, it's a specific day in history, so he remembers kind of celebrating it with his family. So things have definitely changed. So that's a very interesting. But again, ripples or waves? This is more of a ripple, perhaps, than
perhaps.
That said, I mean, it depends. Like, did they put like LMD parents to go back to the kids so they still get raised with family up until whenever they originally died? Is there? Do they try and correct it some way?
Yeah, that would be extreme, but you never know.
You never know. Yeah. I did laugh actually when Mac just says, what would work with your kids? ATVs. I feel like that's good for children. Like, clearly this is something Mac wanted at the age of 12 that he never got, and he's like just trying to goad his parents into it.
I really liked the point just before that where his mother's talking to Yo-Yo, just telling stories about her kids. And Yo-Yo's that, I'm getting all the juicy baby stories.
Actually, the bit I liked is it was going back to the same scene where they first meet them. And Yo-Yo ends her sentence with, I don't think I need to know this, Director Mac. O'Leary. He just kind of adds on like
yeah. No questions.
Yeah. So, no, that stuff was good. But of course, it actually ends in a really dark thing where they end up fighting the two because, he gets him to show the arm because he got slightly injured, the dad, when he was working on the door. And he's like, show me the arm. I need to see the arm. And it's this tense moment. And he shows the arm. And sure enough, there's Chromicon body underneath the skin. And we get this fight scene where it's, Mac, Yo-Yo, and May all taking on the two parents. And obviously, because the Chromicons, they have increased strength and speed. So, it is kind of, it sounds unfair for the heroes, but it's actually not. They're just kind of.
Yeah, but I mean, the heroes do have May on their side, so they were always going to win.
Yes, and they do. And the dad, Yo-Yo actually snaps the dad's neck, which I actually, even though it's not really the dad, I was like, man, that's going to give Mac like some sort of weird nightmares for a while. The visual of his girlfriend snapping his dad's neck.
That's pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah. That said, though, it's topped a minute later when Mac himself has to toss his mother, who goes into kind of like sympathy mode, where she's trying to like, no, don't do it, Alfonso. Alfie,
Alfie,
yeah, Alfie, my child, do not do it.
He has to just throw her out.
Yeah. So he's in a pretty rough place. This is definitely the darkest thing the show's done this season. There's nothing that comes close to like Mac having to kill something that looks like his own mother in this way. But and it's worth mentioning as well. It's not just that itself. It's the fact that this information, the fact that this fight is happening, is him realizing that his parents have already been murdered by the Chromicons. Like this means that his parents have just been murdered.
They're already gone, and they even say, they've been gone for a while.
Yeah. So, and that leads to kind of the ending where they're just all back on the ship. It jumps forward. Mac immediately just grabs his bike and says he has to get air. And the only really complaint I have about this is that it's kind of weird that it went to the logo screen and then came back up. And it was basically just a continuation of the same thing. It was kind of a weird beat.
Yeah. It also seemed a tad weird to me, and almost just, okay, we need this for the next episode, where he takes the bike out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes maybe like 30 feet.
Yeah, it's a bit odd that you can still see the Quinjet in the background like that.
If you're just going for that far, you wouldn't take the bike, you just walk. So it was like, I really felt like we want the bike with him for the next episode.
Well, yeah, we're going to have Mac and of course Deke. Deke's going to be on the back, hugging him as Mac rides around on the bike.
He's going to be terrified.
It's going to be a wonderful visual, and I can't wait. But of course, the big thing that happens, and this is something, of course, that we could have like been assuming something might happen, because it happened to obviously to Enoch, but Enoch can just sort of survive and he'll still be there in 40 years. But it was like, okay, when is a human going to be left behind in a time period? And we actually have to deal with that. Now, we have no idea how, because the ship jumps again when they're both stranded there. We have no idea how much it jumped the first time and how much it jumps when it leaves them behind. So, I mean, are we in the 80s or are we in the 90s? And if we did jump that far, like how far did it jump that second time it jumped? Because it could be a thing where they're just left for like a year. So it's not like they're still going to look the same when they find them again after the jump.
Which would be the most convenient thing to do for the show.
Yeah, because if they don't, then I don't expect we're going to have them in old age makeup or anything
the back
like that.
half of the season.
Yeah, that'd be kind of weird. So I suspect it'll be a case of, no, they've been stranded somewhere for 6 months, a year, something like that. It'll be a short jump. But
probably. But I mean, it's still, it'll be interesting to hopefully start next episode with them and not see the Quinjet, not see how far they've jumped ahead, and experience with Mac and Deke the concern of, oh god, how long are we here for?
Yeah. And hell, I'd be okay with it just being like a week. See if like we have an episode with them on their own and they're like really worried and they're trying to figure things out, and it's just sort of like a Deus Ex Machina thing at the end where the Quinjet pops back into existence and it's like, oh, it was only a week, okay, the alarms can go down.
It's not about how long it's actually gone for.
Yeah.
It's about them having to deal with the fact that they don't know. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's a week, maybe this is it. Maybe, okay, that last jump, that was the one that took them back to present day. They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And them having to deal with that should be fascinating.
Yeah. So yeah, if I was like in the writers' room right now, I'd say no. The next episode, except for maybe the very ending when the ship comes back, maybe it should just be Mac and Deke. It should just be an episode about them. I don't think it will be that necessarily, but that's what my instinct would be to do.
Yeah, that's probably what I'd do as well. That would be ideal.
Yeah. So yeah, the Mac stuff's great, obviously, and yeah. What's interesting about this is you have Mac, who's at his lowest place ever, so he's not going to be in a happy mood. He's not going to be in a cheery mood. And then you have Deke, who's the most bumbling, light-hearted character with him. So it's a nice contrast between those two. So very intrigued to see how they play with that. I will say some of the funniest stuff in the episode, though, obviously other than the Mac with his parents before things get nasty, and Patrick Warburton, of course, who's delightful.
He's a comic genius.
Yes. I love him trying to ask me out because he's like, well, technically we're not actually, you don't answer to me because you're not actually part of the system. And she's like, actually, I'm level 7, so technically you answer to me.
Yeah. And then when they shake hands and she just gets his feelings for a second.
There's a moment where, like, because she's completely cool and she's not being mean or anything. She's actually being kind of friendly about
Smiley,
it. Yeah.
Anything.
But as soon as they shake hands, there's just a moment where she gets what he's feeling. Is like, oh well, I better move before I get overtaken with these feelings, because otherwise something will happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was good fun. But yeah, it's the funniest moment of the episode though. Well, it's a 2-part thing. So Simmons is like thing, and we learn more about it this episode, is that this is what's making her forget where Fritz is, and it's on the Fritz, no pun intended, and it's needing fix, which is forgetting other things, mainly, for example, how to fix the ship, because the ship gets hit with a rocket at one point from the base, from the lighthouse, but by the way, the visual effects on that, when they were firing all the
missiles.
Yeah, well, when I'm thinking of when the Quinjet fires all the, what you call them, the decoy.
Yeah, the counter missile stuff.
I guess, yeah. I'm sure there's a specific name for them, but whatever. But I thought those effects looked good just while I mentioned it. But
they did look, yeah.
Deke, comes in, and Simmons is kind of asleep as Enoch's working on the back of her neck, and Deke's like, "This is fishy," and he grabs something and knocks him out, and he wakes up Simmons.
It's defibrillators.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, he shocks him. You're right. It's which I guess makes sense because he's a robot. So this would be the best way of
short circuit him,
put him down. Anyway, but he does this and he sets it all up and he does it, and he wakes up Simmons, and the first is, "Hey, Nana, Enoch's a traitor. He's a traitor. He was doing something. He's with the Crown Accounts." And Simmons just sort of, she takes a second to sort of realize what's going on. Comes just like, "Oh, Deke, what have you done?" And then the other half of this that I thought was hilarious is later on, after they're awake again and he's doing it again, and Deke's just sort of standing there, and Simmons is like, "Hey, Deke, just give him this look, like, to go and do it." He's like, "Hey, Enoch, I'm sorry I I knocked you out. I questioned. You're a valued member of this family." And I love how as it starts, Enoch just has this look up at him where he just looks like he looks like the parent who's just waiting for the apology of the child, and but he's Enoch, so it's got this sort of double meaning to it where it's kind of intentional, but he's also completely robotic as he's doing it. It's kind of like when he was being mad about being left behind, and it kind of came off really salty, but at the same time it's
like, is it though?
But it was wonderful, and I said it was the most the nicest thing anyone could ever say to him, and his apology was accepted.
I'm looking forward to the moment where I think we were expecting May to get a sense of feelings from Robot Coulson. I could see it happening with Enoch as well.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it being this kind of nice little moment, maybe at the end or just before the end of the season.
Yeah.
No, that was really funny. I like that stuff a lot. The Sky and Sousa stuff, a bit darker, bit less action packed. It was essentially them being held captive. What was the first name? Malik.
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, thank you. He does a lot of experimentation on Sky off screen, and what I kind of liked about this is I've kind of seen stuff like this in the show before, so we didn't necessarily have to show it. And the part in particular that I felt was really kind of poignant not to show is the really dark part where Sky has like snuck a bit of broken glass inside her hand, and like Sousa like pulls it out of her, and it's like, that's really nasty. And I feel like that's the sort of thing where normally we would see that scene of them doing that, and I kind of almost love no, we know Sky's a badass. We know that she would do something like insane like this.
And I love that Sousa doesn't know her well enough, because he's there going, don't give up yet. We'll still fight. And then opens her hand and sees she's brought the glass back. And he's like, well, I guess you're still fighting. Because we expect it. He maybe just isn't there yet. Because this is pretty intense. Let's be fair. And
it's relatively a minor subplot in this episode, in the sense of the amount of time that it gets, in terms of the focus it has. If anything, I'm surprised that there was so little focus from the rest of the cast about, we need to find those two, like what happened to those two. I mean, it's mentioned a couple of times, but for the most part, they're too busy doing their own things to even tackle it.
They're constantly like, no. Deal with the bigger problems first, we'll worry about them after.
But what I really liked about it is that it used its time really smartly, because Sousa, when she's lying there, before he finds the glass and he thinks she's fading, he's trying to keep her awake, and he's got her head on his lap, and he's trying to keep her awake, and it's this touching thing, is that he actually tells the story of how he got injured, which is something that I can't remember exactly how much he didn't want to talk about this in Agent Carter. I think he didn't as well in that, but in this show itself, it made a point in his introduction when someone kind of like said, "Hey, do you want to talk about like how you got your injury?" He kind of shot it down and said, "No, not really." So it made a point of establishing that, and I vaguely remember, I think, in Agent Carter, that it was also something he didn't want to talk about. It was kind of this, no.
I will take your word for it on that one.
Yeah, maybe I'm making that up in my head, but I feel like whether it was there or not, I feel like this show made a point of establishing that in these few episodes, so that him actually telling the story to try and keep her awake was kind of a big deal from a character perspective. And of course, he sticks around at the end. He's not, he's on the ship. He's coming with them wherever they're going. It feels like he's on
Whenever
board.
they're going.
Yeah, whenever they're going. Yeah. It feels like he's on board for the season now, I would say, which is kind of cool. It's kind of, even though I don't love that other show, I don't love Agent Carter, I was kind of bored by it and gave up mid-season 2.
He was never a bad character on that show, though. We never I never disliked him.
Honestly, there was a few characters in that show that I kind of liked, some of which they actually dropped from season 1 to 2. I remember, like, Lindsay Fonseca, the roommate character, I remember being kind of interested, and they just dropped her completely for season 2, and it was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. But, we had problems with the show, don't get me wrong. We got bored, but, the characters were mostly fine, if not, outright likable.
Yeah, no, they had likable characters. It was more just the writing and the story that was the problem. And the direction, I would say, because I think the pacing in the show was a big issue.
Yeah, I don't know if that was I feel like that was the writing across the season pacing that was a real problem.
So, yeah, so he's sticking about. It is worth mentioning that Nathaniel does seem to get some sort of quake powers that he can't control, because he brings down the barn they're in around him.
Yeah, it's that horrific. He's like, it's he can feel his bones cracking, and it's like, yeah, that's why Sky had the gauntlets.
Yeah,
she kind of needed those.
Yeah.
So I think we're assuming though that she hasn't lost her powers, right?
No. In fact, that's one of the little moments that I really liked in the Coulson Chronicon stuff is at one point when he asks, where's Sky, and he's like, oh, she's been abducted. And Nathaniel's trying to take her powers. He's like, what's the chances he'll succeed? And she's like 22%. And what's the chances of her surviving? And she's like 84. And he's like, that's my girl. Like, I really liked that. I was like, yeah, Sky's probably fine. She's taking care of herself.
That's part of why most of the crew aren't overly worried about, okay, we need to get her back right now. Is like, she can handle herself.
Yeah. I think it was a bit more dire than any of them expected, because we actually got to see it, but, it
all worked out mostly okay in the end.
Yeah. Were you all annoyed it didn't reveal what time period they were at the end? Because I was really looking forward to finding out.
It was a little frustrating, yeah, and it was unique to not do that so far this season.
Yeah, because I guess it's like a two-pronged mystery then of like, okay, when's the first jump to and when's the second jump to? Are they both in the same period, or did they get dropped off in the 80s and then they jumped again to the 90s, which again would completely change how they deal with them sticking around in one place. But so, yeah, I'm definitely curious to find out. Now this was a really solid upper tier episode of Shield where there was lots of comedy, there was a lot of good character beats, some inspirational kind of heroic stuff towards the end, as well as some dark character stuff towards the end. It was it's one of those ones where I wouldn't put it on par with like the show's like best, where when I'm thinking of like some of the absolute cream of the crop top 10 episodes. It's not up there, but it's a really solid example why even when it's at kind of its standard level, it can pull off something like this where I'm like, no, I'm really into this, and we're only just hitting the halfway point. We're middle episodes next week, so. And
that makes sense because we're getting about the middle of the season where teams at a really fractured place right now. Still, we've got a bit more teasing of Fitz in this episode of like, oh, he's somewhere guiding them.
Yeah. And Fitz, I can see Fitz not showing up to the last couple of episodes, and that's okay. Obviously, we miss him a little bit, but I think, Fitz and Simmons have had such great character development overall, the show.
They need it less than anyone else.
Yeah. I do think his entrance, whenever it'll be, though, will be
a great moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm assuming it'll be good. So, no, that's all really good stuff. This was really quality, and look forward. So, given that most of these seasons of Shield tend to, even the last season kind of did this as well, where it kind of shifted a little bit in focus about halfway through. I feel like this will probably do the same, and this hunting the Chromicons, that chasing after them through time, will probably, if not be wrapped up, at least kind of change gears a little bit over the next episode or two, I would expect.
Yeah, I'm not sure how or exactly what it plans on doing next.
I mean, hell, even the fact that Coulson blew up their ship, I suspect probably has changed things a bit in terms of how it functions.
Yeah, I can see us shifting a lot of focus to, Nathaniel Malik, for example, as this whole new threat that didn't exist in the original timeline.
Yeah.
That they've got to deal with now. So, yeah, definitely some stuff that we've got there to play with if they want to shake things up.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, we didn't really mention that May's kind of starting to get a little bit of her feelings back, because Coulson kind of annoys her enough that he kind of like makes a catty little comment. He's like, "Oh yeah, you seem annoyed," or something like that. I can't remember what he said.
Yeah. It's just like a hint of the old May.
Yeah, just a hint of that coming through. So it's maybe a good sign that she can kind of come back over time. Because I think there's a potential at the end when she says, "Oh, don't worry, he'll come back. He always does." There was a potential for that to sound kind of cold, given where she was in the first like 3 or 4 episodes. But I think there was just enough of her back that it actually kind of felt a little bit more heartwarming. Even though her speech in the middle of the episode about how she's mourned him too many times, she's not going to let herself get attached to this robot version. You know.
Yeah, that was a really solid moment as well. But let's say this here, it's not that she's not wanting to mourn him again. You know, she's not attached to this version. Here at the end, it's more like, no, I believe in Coulson. He'll be back.
Believe in Coulson. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm not sure if it counts if it's just younger Coulson they run into later, but I mean, whatever. It's fine.
One way or another.
Yeah.
It'll count.
So, no. There you go. That is episode 6 of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7. We're about to hit the midpoint of the final season. So we'll see where it goes from here. But definitely they turned up the dramatic quality quite a bit. What Mac had to do in this episode definitely was quite dark. And like I say, it's much more so the fact that his real parents did get murdered for what was happening in the process. If it was just the situation on its own without that, it'd mess him up and he'd probably have some pretty bad dreams for a while, but it wouldn't be as devastating.
It's not like he saved them, is it? They're still gone.
I do wonder, like, do his memories start to like shift and fade because they're not all the memories he had after that day of his parents? Did they
I
slowly
don't
fade
know,
away?
because there's already been timeline changes, and it hasn't affected any of the cast so far. Obviously,
That's
none of
true.
them have been as personal as this, but it doesn't seem like we're playing by those rules right now.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, because Deke, still remembers everything in his life, and his entire history get changed. So that makes sense, but still something worth pondering. But hey, there you go. That's episode 6 of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. Please do liking is very important on YouTube. Lets the algorithm know that you think we're worth recommending out and more people have found us, so please do. It's an easy free way to show your support. You can also do it financially though over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month if you want to keep all the content coming and get some bonuses for your trouble. Go and have a look and see if you're interested. But otherwise that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?